People know the movie theater's back and they're excited and they walk in and then they discover that it's actually a nonprofit, it's got an IMAX, it's independent, it's all these new things. So that's been a really great sort of process.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we'll be speaking with Maria Ruiz Botsacos and Eric Kohn. They'll be speaking about the Southampton Playhouse, a movie-going destination in the Hamptons. Very summer-themed as we talk about movie-going and beaches. I can't wait to get out there myself. That is coming up in the second half of this episode. But before we get there, we'll be recapping the opening weekend for Superman, looking ahead to this weekend at the movies, and sharing the latest things we've seen in theaters. I've got to sit that last portion of the question out. I haven't been to the movies since watching F1 3 times in 1 week.
Only 3?
Hey, that's not bad.
Come on, give me a break. I told you guys, I saw it in IMAX, I saw it in Dolby, and I saw it on D-Box. Each offered a unique experience. It took my dad to see it on D-Box. He had a great time. Unique experiences. It's a refreshing movie that doesn't have a backstory they have to explain, doesn't have to set up a franchise. Hey, come on. That's perfect for me. I don't know, Rebecca, you've been traveling. Have you been able to catch anything?
In theaters, the most recent thing I saw was Jurassic World Rebirth in the Dolby, the AMC in Times Square, and then went on vacation to the tiny little town my parents live in, where the closest movie theater with more than one screen is like an hour and a half drive away. But I caught up with some stuff that's hit VOD. Yeah, I'm seeing Superman tomorrow. You're seeing it today, right?
Yeah, Chad and I are both seeing Superman today. We'll have to save our reactions to that next week. But Chad, you did see something that's opening this weekend. How is the Smurfs looking in terms of take my kids quality? Because now the tracking, as we're about to reveal, isn't doing too well for that title.
Yeah. To preface, I am not the target audience, obviously, for this film.
You are above the age of 5, so
yes.
no.
Yes, don't have kids yet, so... But I took my niece, and I asked her at the end of the movie, if you were to rate this movie from 1 star to 5 stars, what would you rate it? And she said 600 stars. So
that's glowing praise.
Yeah, so my review was somewhat under that, but...
Cinema score, eat your heart out. But
she loved it.
We've got your 6-year-old niece.
Yeah. It seemed like kids had a good time.
That's all that counts. They should use her pull quote on the poster.
Yes, they should.
They're going to need it. Unfortunately, this weekend, the new releases are all struggling to carve themselves a niche in the marketplace. As we all know, we're coming off a great 4th of July opening weekend from Jurassic World Rebirth. Superman opened to 125 million domestic, right in the middle of our pre-release forecast. Unfortunately, I Know What You Did Last Summer, the latest iteration of it, and the Smurfs are both tracking under $20 million.
I mean, I get why you have to release a movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer in summer, but that is a March movie to me.
Man,
I feel like we've seen that a lot this summer, of like Ballerina or 28 Years Later, like things that would have just
Megan
been a little bit better spread out across the calendar.
Oh, Megan is like a February movie. Megan is
and Megan's a good February. Like they could have done gangbusters, but I don't know if it was ever on the table to release a movie about July 4th shenanigans in the dead of winter.
You know, there's a lot of history of that. Miracle on 34th Street came out in the middle of the summer, so
there you go.
Iron Man 3, I think, was a Christmas. Oh, Shane Black, all his movies are Christmas movies, regardless of when they come out, right?
Don't forget the OG of that MTV generation horror, like slashers from the 90s. Scream was a December release. Like they really built out that December corridor for the Miramax horror movies. Now, I always like a horror kind of programming option over the Christmas holiday. Listen, Nosferatu did fantastically well over last Christmas, right?
You have a lot of people experiencing horror with their families. Maybe some tense relationships there over the holidays, and then you get to see something scary.
Well, talking about tense relationships and horror, we've got Ari Aster also coming up with a new title, Eddington, which played at the Cannes Film Festival. That is opening up this weekend as well. A more modest forecasting range on that one. Right now, we're thinking between 3 and 5 million. I know that sounds alarming, but really, when you talk about a film of this nature, it's really along the range where it should open at?
I've just kept hearing that it's like Beau is Afraid. It's not one of those mainstream horror, Midsummer, Hereditary. I feel like this is maybe there's a little one for him, one for the studios. I'm
I
not
mean, he's
sure.
been making one for me for a while now.
Yeah,
But I don't mind. I am not completely in the bag for Beau is Afraid, but I didn't mind it. I still had a good time watching it. There's a lot of aspects of that movie that I remember. I'm excited to see Eddington. Unfortunately, not too many people are as excited to go see either Smurfs or I Know What You Did Last Summer this coming weekend at the box office. So let's take a quick recap of the weekend that was here with a $125 million debut for Superman. Globally, the movie ended up grossing $95 million for a total of $220 million worldwide. The top performing locations in North America were led by AMC Burbank, followed in second place by AMC Lincoln Square, and in third place, Regal Irvin Spectrum Los Angeles, with number 4 being the AMC Empire New York, and rounding out the top 5, the AMC Disney Springs Orlando. The top DMAs were led by Los Angeles and number 2 New York, number 3 Dallas, number 4 Chicago, and number 5 San Francisco. The usual suspects when you think about the major DMAs here for movie going. In terms of demographics on this opening weekend, we had 22% of that opening weekend audience being of Hispanic descent, once again over-indexing relative to their share of the population. Hispanic moviegoers really being the power users here domestically at the movies. In the overseas side of the conversation are led by the United Kingdom with 9.8 million, and in second place, Mexico with 8.8 million, with third place going to China with a $6.6 million debut. We talk about Superman, we talk about formats we're going to see the movie in. I don't know what sort of tickets you guys have, but 47% of that opening weekend haul in North America coming from premium format auditoriums. I'm watching it Dolby. Rebecca, Pahle, what format are you seeing it in?
I actually don't know yet. We are seeing it with a friend of Eric's who's coming in from out of town, and we don't exactly know when he'll be here. So it'll all depend on just what Showtime matches up better. I'd prefer to see it in Dolby.
I'm seeing it in IMAX. I always like to see if it's been filmed in for IMAX.
I'm like you, Chad. If it's been filmed in IMAX, I'll try to seek it out in IMAX. But the premium format conversation is just getting wider and wider. You have so many different offerings coming in from different circuits in different countries. This coming from a guy that saw F1 in a different format 3 times in 1 week. I find it interesting. I'm that sort of cinephile. I think different experiences at the movies are worth analyzing, especially for a movie that's worth it. And in that front, Chad, we've got news from our friends over at Barco with a new collaboration with a top European exhibitor in view for a new premium format concept.
Barco and View announced an expansive deal to roll out the HDR by Barco presentation across Europe. So that's going to be the cornerstone of View's new premium large format experience, which is called Epic by View, which I believe there's one opening later this month.
Oh, nice. That's UK only at this point, I'm assuming.
Yes, correct.
But you're definitely seeing the market respond to what is a very clear rise in desire for premium formats, especially when you look at, Daniel, you and I are on the AMC subscription list, and there's no extra fee for that. So I think that I like the rollout being tied together with an attempt on the part of a variety of cinemas to make things more affordable for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's part of the conversation, right? Because for you and I, Rebecca, whether we see it with our AMC subscription or go to another circuit to see it in a premium format, that's a tax write-off. We have a little bit of leeway since we do this for a living in terms of how we prioritize our cinema spend. Not everyone's under that boat, and AMC right now expanding their discount days to include a second midweek discount day that just launched. Can you give us the detail of that Wednesday discount program from AMC Theaters?
So obviously, Discount Tuesday has always been their flagship discount day, has become a very well-attended day since becoming a more affordable option for moviegoers. Recently, they experimented with half off tickets on Wednesday. So that's half off the adult price of a ticket. You still have to pay surcharges for any premium formats, but the base ticket price is still half off. So now what they announced announced is they're going to take that structure for 50% off Discount Wednesdays and apply that to Discount Tuesdays. So that's what Discount Tuesdays are going to be from now on, which is great. Like, I mean, I'm going to see Superman on a Tuesday. Like, sometimes you don't want to do opening weekend sometimes, and you just need that little push to be like, oh yeah, I'll go see something on a Tuesday, on a
I
Wednesday.
love movie Mondays. Are you kidding me? Off peak is my favorite time to go to the movies. I know exhibitors love it when they have off peak consumers.
I feel like that there's like all the cheaper matinee stuff that I used to go to pre-COVID. I feel like a lot of them didn't come back. Or maybe I'm just thinking of one particular cinema in my old neighborhood, but I like saving money.
Yeah, I know, but I think you're hitting on something that is very accurate. That it's got a little bit underreported as we cover this industry. Is one of the biggest challenges coming back from the pandemic was finding work hours that made sense for cinema staff, right? We talked about the staffing issues that we had once cinemas reopened. Did it make sense for you to be open 8 hours a day, especially midweek? So we saw reduced hours in many cases, some cinemas eliminating matinees altogether. Sometimes they're doing it 3 or 4 p.m., right? So we're seeing, I think, something closer to that pre-pandemic era right now, with more showtimes creeping in, those opening hours being extended, especially as we're talking about AMC right now. AMC is the largest chain, not only in the country, but in the world, often acts as a bellwether for the entire industry, in the stock market at least, right? And right now, seeing that stock price rise, really, since analysts started saying, hey, those issues in terms of top movies not being available to cinemas or being available to cinemas for shorter time spans or not coming out as often, those concerns are being quashed a little bit. Right now, the movie demand is being met by the studios. The box office numbers look good. That stock price going up, I think a reflection of that momentum you're seeing with more showtimes, longer opening hours across the board anywhere in the country. That's one of the quiet signs of the recovery here. If your movie theater after COVID opened at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, today you can probably see a couple of 12 p.m. screenings, 1 p.m. screenings that weren't there a couple of years back. And more cinemas are opening all over the area. One example is the Southampton Playhouse, which was recently reopened earlier this year. I believe it was with Captain America, Brave New World, reopening its doors to the local community. They've had a great experience so far, welcoming back patrons, welcoming new patrons. To speak more about that, we've got Southampton Playhouse's Maria Ruiz Botsacos and Eric Kohn joining us for an in-depth conversation on the new beginnings of the Southampton Playhouse. That's coming up after this commercial break.
Irwin Seating has been building and installing seating solutions in schools, stadiums, concert halls, and cinemas for 119 years. So it's safe to assume they've seen a thing or two. And safer still to assume that Irwin not only has the products you need, they have the experience, knowledge, and know-how to solve whatever problem you have that needs solving, regardless of the size of your cinema or your problem. To learn more about what Irwin has learned about cinema in the last 119 years, visit irwinseating.com.
And we're back here on the Box Office Podcast with this week's guest representing the Southampton Playhouse. We've got Executive Director Maria Ruiz and Eric Kohn, the Artistic Director of the theater and former colleague of mine back in our IndieWire days. Guys, welcome back. Well, on the Eric side, Maria, it's the first time we get to chat.
Thank you. Thank you for including us.
Glad to be back.
So let's talk about the Southampton Playhouse. It's a cinema with a lot of history. Let's start with that, because obviously I know you guys came in not that long ago. The reopening happened earlier this year in 2025. But the theater itself in that community in the Hamptons has a history that stretches well before this year.
That's completely accurate, Daniel. The theater was opened originally in 1932. In fact, we have the same marquee from 1932 in impeccable condition, so we're really lucky to have that. The theater reopened after being closed for several years. It was closed during COVID, but it's newly reopened as of February of 2025, and Eric and I are thrilled to be at the helm.
Yeah, and I would also add, I mean, one of the things that's so fascinating about being at this theater is that because it has nearly a century of history in the town, there's so much enthusiasm among people who have grown up going to the movie theater here. I mean, the fact that, we've met people who worked here in the 50s and the 60s and in the 80s, and they all have different kinds of relationships to it, which is a great starting point for building a movie theater that can both have both sort of traditional status and something new. So people know the movie theater's back and they're excited and they walk in and then they discover that it's actually a nonprofit. It's got an IMAX, it's independent, it's all these new things. So that's been a really great sort of process.
Yeah, just to echo what Eric is saying, this cinema has been the cornerstone of the community for many, many decades. And we've heard so many incredible, joyful memories just from all kinds of teenagers that are excited that it's open again. They have a place to go, but haven't been there since their, younger years. And, middle-aged folks that are bringing in their toddlers and that have their own memories, along with some older folks. And most recently, we had Maria Cooper Janis come in, and she participated in the Gary Cooper Festival and talked about her childhood memories coming to the East End. So it's been a really wonderful reception all the way around.
Now, coming into exhibition at any point in the history of this business is always tricky. You guys, despite having long ties in both exhibition on the cultural side and obviously film journalism and producing, decided to come in at probably the hardest time in the history of our business in the post-pandemic era. Can you talk a little bit about that? What was it about this project, about reopening this theater in this community that drew you in?
I'll speak for me. I think the one thing that stands out is the dedication at the board that was recently formed, this nonprofit, and their dedication to having community events, community access. And more than just the screen, they really are vested in bringing opportunities to the community that are, it's a wonderfully rich cultural community year round. I know a lot of people talk about quote unquote, the Hamptons or the East End, as the locals refer to it as a resort, which it is, in fact. But there is a wonderful year-round community that is composed of so many interesting people that are hungry for culture. And the board has, within our mission, included, this is in fact an extension of a community space. And so Eric and I are really enthusiastic about that. I know personally, just bringing in the young children and giving them a place to go that they wouldn't necessarily otherwise have something to do on a quiet February evening. All of that was really exciting to me. It is challenging at times because, of course, what you mentioned, where we are in terms of exhibition this time around, but we're finding a lot of enthusiasm and we've been really, really lucky to have bumped into so many amazing people that live here year round and really serve as an anchor, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, clearly one of the few solutions to the challenges facing exhibition is to really double down on the local level, because regardless of what's happening nationally, you have your people and your base. And any theater in a small town with a faithful audience that's been going there for a long time, that's just showing the same movies as hundreds of theaters around the country, if not thousands, is really missing the point of where we should be right now. I mean, the reason on the curatorial side that I was excited about this opportunity is because we're building something that can be many different kinds of options at once. Yeah. That we can show big movies, but we can also show repertory series. Last weekend, as we're speaking, we had both Jesse Eisenberg presenting Zombieland and Julianne Moore reading from her kids' book. But we also had How to Train Your Dragon on IMAX, and we had a local adoption agency come and do a talk on how to train your pet. So we're doing all these kinds of unique things that could only happen in our theater, and we have the only IMAX for 50 miles. So obviously we are privileged in the sense that we have this extraordinary technological foundation that we can build on, but also we have the opportunity to do things where we can try stuff, we can experiment, and I think that's what audiences want right now.
Yeah, I think the audiences are really appreciative of the access that Eric has created via the Playhouse Post. They write to him, they talk to him about films that they long to see on the big screen and haven't seen for a while. It's a great conversation, and we've taken really great advantage of that hunger that they've had, after losing their beloved theater. So it's a really good two-way discussion with the community. And we've done some really exciting things. As Eric mentioned, we've also reached out to our other cultural organizations local that we've partnered with, such as the Southampton African American Museum. And we've actually done 2 activations with them that have been really successful. And again, yeah, the community is really excited and embracing this opportunity for us. So far, so good, Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the work that we did with the Southampton African American Museum around Sinners really helped kind of establish that movie in our community. And it's, you've talked about in your podcast, and a lot of other people have, nobody really saw that movie coming in terms of the success it had and how singular it was. And when I saw it early, it was really important for me to engage local stakeholders to explain it to the community, even if, with time, word of mouth would grow. So that was how we worked with them on opening weekend. And we're doing that with a lot of different kind of people now. I mean, something that's also worth looking at is Southampton is a very small part of the East End of Long Island, and it's our base. But the East End of Long Island is a really big, complicated place with a lot of different types of people. 30% of it is Spanish speaking. So we're really leaning hard into figuring out how we can serve that audience as well. And that kind of awareness of who's out there, I think, allows us to activate audiences that haven't even really existed as moviegoers in this area yet.
And it's that nimbleness that you guys are doing in audience development that you can do because you are a community-driven theater that is mission-based, and you can say, hey, what are the pockets that we're not addressing with our programming? How do we get to them?
That's right. You just hit on the point that I was going to make. I think the uniqueness also that we bring is this hybrid of blockbusters. And Eric mentioned, this gorgeous IMAX. We had the opportunity of showing Jaws on IMAX, which was originally shown at the Southampton Playhouse in its first rendition. And so people were overjoyed to see it in IMAX. And so that's a unique thing for us to be able to do for this community. And it was a packed evening of pure excitement and childhood memories coming alive in a very unique way. So that's great. But then we also have educational documentaries that Eric has put together. And we've hosted so many students. We've already started to do that. And that feels really, really good. These educational documentaries that encourage children that learn differently to have conversation and their teachers respect the fact that curriculum can be accomplished via a film. So we are really embracing the educational community here. And with Eric's help, being an educator himself, I think we've had a really unexpected creativity. Just like it's so welcomed and refreshing for the educators over here that hasn't been available. So we can't forget, as Eric mentions, it's a complex group of residents a year round, in addition to the summer influx of the resort town.
Yeah.
So we're really, really, I think, committed as we go through our ideas. We're always keeping that top of mind.
Yeah. And I also had there's 700 kids in the Southampton High School, and a lot of them are interested in the arts, and we want to be more than a movie theater. We want to be a cultural hub for this community, which is the entire East End of Long Island, but also has national resonance as well because of a lot of the people who live around here and because of the resources that hopefully we can provide. So one of the things that I'm really looking into is how can we create an on-ramp for people who are serious about movies and other related forms of media to basically develop their entire careers from an early stage around resources we can provide. And we want to bring more production back to the area. And so we're already talking about, what the grant writing process will look like around there. But a lot of times those sorts of opportunities come for people after they've gotten into college or after college. We want to start at a much earlier phase where we can basically invest in somebody's career and give them the sort of endorsement that they need to feel like they're on the right track at a very young age. Because I think right now, more than ever, that's the kind of guidance that people really need.
I knew it was something I wanted to do in high school. And for me, my connection to doing this for a living were the local theaters I had in high school in Miami. And the fact that you guys are doing that outreach, not only as film professionals, but as film lovers and having had a career in this industry, I love that grassroots connection you're having building this up. Now, I do have to ask, because I think a lot of our listeners are asking themselves this question. How does an independent nonprofit get an IMAX? Do you get a special t-shirt from IMAX or like a plaque that they send you like, congratulations, you're the one? How does that work out exactly?
Okay, so that's a really great question. Actually, Richard Gelfond, I'm using his words, not mine, who's the CEO of IMAX, as you may know. He is a Southampton resident. And I think his determination to have an IMAX in the area for his personal enjoyment
It
came,
helps. It helps when the CEO lives there, right?
and actually, he makes this joke that he tried to put an IMAX in his home, but he ended up spending the money on the kitchen instead and helping the Playhouse build this state of the art IMAX theater. We should also tell you the 4 screens, IMAX is 161 seats. That's important to note. And the additional blessings we have are the 35 millimeter projector that we're going to inaugurate very soon. And that's a neighboring theater to the IMAX, in addition to this fantastic flex space that gives us an opportunity to use it as a theater with a gorgeous Christie projector and Atmos sound, but it also loans itself as an event space, as a place to have a podcast with Daniel. We invite you to come and have your podcast with us. It's also a wonderful space to have these very exciting opportunities for the community, such as what Eric mentioned earlier with Julianne Moore reading to an audience of 100 kids her, freckle-faced strawberry book and interacting with toddlers, asking very poignant questions was a joy. So, and we intend on using that for live events as well, in terms of musical events, comedy, etc. And Eric has a lot of great ideas coming soon. Additionally, we have Theater 2, which is the larger of the smaller theaters. It's 96 seats, and we've done a lot of great fun programming in that as well. So 4 screens all day, IMAX being kind of the shiny new toy. And we've had, like I said, great support from Richard Gelfand and IMAX directly.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I mean, the IMAX is a great Trojan horse. Everybody knows that brand. I mean, it is so effective at getting people to go to a movie theater rather than waiting for things at home. And we're the only IMAX for 50 miles. So when people want to come, whether it's How to Train Your Dragon or it's Mission Impossible, where we had, insane numbers in the area, that is a great driver for just getting people in the door. And that it's so important to have something like that you can count on so that they can discover these other kinds of things. There aren't a lot of IMAXs in the 1,800 they have worldwide that are independent nonprofits and have these other kinds of opportunities. So in order to explain ourselves to the broader community, we really rely on that IMAX to deliver the goods and then sort of introduce people to what else we have on offer. So I'm on the ground a lot introducing screenings to people who thought they were just going to see a new release. And then suddenly the artistic director pops up with a microphone to kind of let them know, like, by the way, subscribe to our email address. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. And so we're in this process of kind of cultivating an audience that didn't even know that all this good stuff was available to them.
I love how you characterize it as a Trojan horse. And I think right now in exhibition, as we talk about premium large format as such a driver for audiences, but it's also a stretch on CapEx for a lot of folks. It doesn't just have to be a premium large format auditorium. It can be, like in your case, but you can also do other things like the ones you guys are tackling at Southampton, in educational spaces, event spaces, to bring people in for different reasons and get them engaged in everything you do. I think of my friends over at the Bryn Mawr Film Institute in suburban Philadelphia. They just installed a 70 millimeter projector and have had great success driving up their repertory programming by saying, hey, we've got this unique technology that's been around for many years back in our theaters, and that acts as a Trojan horse. So the way that premium large format, our IMAX specifically for you guys, is this, let's say, audience development tool for everything you do, is something that folks can do not only with working with a big company, but through other ways in what's accessible to them.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for being open-minded.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I also think it's like we want to be local and national at the same time. And like the whole conversation around PLFs, you don't want it to feel like it's the same everywhere you go. Right. Like there are really, to be frank, there are some not great theaters that have PLFs opportunities for people. It's just not just about having Dolby Digital. It's about having a clean theater, comfortable seats, pre-roll that engages you with the programming and all that kind of stuff. You can't just take that stuff for granted. I've been in soulless. We've all been in soulless ginormous movie theaters where the staff has no idea what's playing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we look at the people who work at the theater as like part of our crew.
Yeah.
We do staff screenings so they can actually talk with a knowledge base to people who walk in and not just sell them popcorn, but actually develop a relationship with them the way that we are. So all of this stuff is amazing, but I don't think we take it for granted because you really can't if you need a dependable audience, and we can't just rely on the studios to give us good movies all the time either. Hopefully they're great and they're going to do really well, but we also want to make sure that we have other kinds of programming on offer because there could be some weeks where even if the movies are of a certain quality, the audience themselves don't necessarily want to see those things in our community. So that's another part of it that's really important.
Yeah, I also think building trust is what we're doing right now, and getting feedback and being engaged and open to learning and hearing what the hunger is from the community is really important to us, so we can build on that. Additionally, do you want to talk about the surprise screening and how that went? I mean, I thought that was a lot of fun.
We've been doing these Mystery Movie Mondays, which you've probably heard of these because a bunch of theaters participate in them, where different studios are able to present on Mondays, which are typically a slow day of the week, a movie that for $5 you can see and you don't know what it is. I love this kind of stuff. I mean, at festivals, I always loved like secret screenings, surprise screenings, like the more secretive, the better in a way. Now it's really hard to do that because the trades always figure out what they are in advance, but that doesn't happen in small communities like this. So we've had a couple of different Mystery Movie Mondays and the feedback has been great. We showed a movie that even some audiences weren't super into it and left early. They still said they were happy they were there because they were like, for $5, why not roll the dice? It was a fun kind of challenge for them. And we're going to lean into that more and more, especially as we build out our membership and our brand, so that there's this sense of you don't even have to have a plan to go see a movie. You just have to plan to go see something at the Playhouse and trust the brand to take you somewhere unique. So it was really great to see that just this first step towards that with the Monday Mystery Movie was really effective.
Take me back to reopening night earlier this year. How did that whole thing come about? Because, of course, it goes back to even just remodeling your kitchen. You have an idea of when you're going to complete a project and start using it. And then the reality, did that come on schedule? How did that entire thing come together?
Well, I have to say, I was really impressed with the fact that we were open in February, and it was a goal to be open for, like I said, the year round. I keep referring to the community that lives here as the year round community. So February was kind of delicious to be a little bit more intimate with that group before the influx of the resort season, so to speak. We had some items on the punch list that continued to be improved, but overall it was open and ready for business. For example, the concessions had to be adjusted. We learned on the ground that something wasn't functioning, and we had to revisit the concessions. And again, we had a really diligent team that was part of the construction project and really took professional care. It was more about the details at the end, and as every project is getting through that finish line. But they were committed, they were there, they worked off hours to make sure that the Playhouse was open for business during the day. And we worked within the parameters of the boundaries that needed to be established in order to continue finalizing those, sharpening our pencils, with those little tweaks. But we were able to do it. We had a fantastic February with great fun events, right? We had the privilege of having open house for the community. We invited all of the first responders we could get a hold of that weren't occupied or elsewhere. A lot of people travel, as you know, in the winter months. But yeah, we were able to embrace the school district, and it was really a lot of fun, Daniel, getting to know the community in a more intimate way. And Eric and I, we kind of did a road show through the cultural hub here. And we met a wonderful man at the Southampton Arts Center who brought in a great, fantastic group. That was like 12 individuals that were physically challenged. And they came in, and their faces, they were beaming. They were so excited. So we did a lot of that type of thing and worked around, the finishing touches.
It's funny because when I was a critic, I was very cynical about certain types of, bigger movies sometimes because they weren't up to the kinds of standards I was developing watching a wide array of international cinema around the world. And I still have that eclectic taste, but I will say seeing examples like the one Maria just cited has been really phenomenal as a sort of reminder that even a movie that isn't necessarily what you personally like, it can have a dramatic effect on somebody when they're really young, just to have that fully polished theatrical experience. So that's been really awesome. I think I told you also on the podcast before, I started the Repertory series when we opened with a series called The Spirit of 1932, which was all these pre-code Hollywood movies. And what that gave me confidence in is that we can really play off our history here. People love the fact that we have this like legacy going back to the vaudeville days and all that kind of stuff. And so again, it's like off season, so to speak. We can do things that in the summer are a little more challenging because it's a very cluttered time of year, to engage the locals and also to build our sensibilities as something that they themselves feel like they have a stake in.
You know, as movie lovers and film professionals, I think like you guys, we're drawn to exhibition because of the programming opportunities, because of all the things we want to share and discover with audiences. And then the operations creep up. And then the logistics of running a movie theater become realities. As outsiders to an extent in exhibition, obviously coming in this year with a big major project, I'm always interested to learn from folks like yourselves, what are things that our vendor audience can do better to service you guys and to support you in running a movie theater? What is this industry behind on in making better in order for that movie-going experience and running a movie-going experience to be exponentially improved?
What a great question.
That's a really
you guys.
wow.
Well,
it feels like
young,
Christmas,
so
Daniel.
It's there's so much to think about in terms of operationally how to improve the theatrical experience. I mean, I'll tell you what I've learned, because I don't come from exhibition, is you really need to understand the rules of engagement with studios. They can be amazing partners, and at the same time, they have their priorities and you have yours. We align in the sense that we want to support the studio films that we're showing, but we also want to make sure that as a nonprofit with a mission, we're making space for the things that we think give us a really distinctive identity. So from an operational standpoint, having 4 screens is fascinating. When I saw you before in CinemaCon and I was walking around and telling people I had 4 screens, they would say things like, "I'm sorry," or just start laughing because they had 8 to 10 screens or 12 screens or whatever, and they're trying to like cram them with all this stuff. Now, from my standpoint, people are overwhelmed with options at home. I think it's kind of better to have fewer, but we do need to give space to big new releases. And in order to do that, we have to figure out the right kind of operational approach to accommodate the other things we want to do. So that's something that I've been thinking a lot about, is how to make sure that depending on who you are as an audience member, our theater can serve your needs, and we can also, do right by the studios with what their expectations are.
Again, it's that word trust, right? It's getting our colleagues. The wonderful thing that Eric and I bring with us is the relationships that we've formed over the last couple decades working in this space. And I think that's something that stays with you. If it's a new venue, but we're the same humans that they've been accustomed to working with. And if we say this is something we want to put together, they trust our word. And that was really apparent when we had Tony Gilroy come in for that conversation.
That was so great.
He's not a local. He came in, and a colleague put her trust in us. She had not seen the theater. She had not understood the logistics of the theater and all of that. And I mean, it was just a great afternoon of really curious and exciting conversations.
And the thing that was great, have you seen Andor, Daniel?
I haven't, and I feel like a bad Mexican for not having done that, because Mexicans last like 20 minutes of running.
Oh my God.
I need to get onto that.
Yeah, Rogue One is a good movie, but Andor is next level. It's the best thing that Star Wars has done, full stop. But also Tony Gilroy is one of the best screenwriters out there. All these Bourne movies, Michael Clayton, of course. So I wasn't sure if the audience was there for somebody like that, because it's sort of a question of, well, who is that audience? But it turned out that because of the way we positioned it, there were people who wanted to hear from Tony Gilroy without even knowing his work, because they realized this is an established storyteller and they wanted to learn about what it's like to be somebody like that and what that trajectory was. He went from writing The Cutting Edge to being like one of 5 people in Armageddon and all this stuff. It's a great saga. And we positioned it in a way that we will be doing for all of our artist talks, which is that I asked Tony to share a clip from a movie that inspired him, not one of his own, which was It's a Mad, Mad, Mad world. Very unexpected to a lot of people. It's still a very funny movie.
Good.
So we figured out a formula to make the event worthwhile no matter who you were. Having said that, there was a guy who drove 200 miles to get to the theater because he was such a big Andor fan. And I found out because I'm on the Andor Reddit and I saw his post about it, and he was very happy. He got it signed. So, the idea of being able to do like an event that has like a fan service component, but can also have a sort of highbrow storytelling element at the same time, that's something that is like sort of epitomizes the approach that I think we want to take on the programming side of things.
I love what you guys are doing out there. I really do. I can't wait to see it in person. Anything else we should add to our conversation before we sign off?
We're doing matinee screenings like a lot of theaters for kids. But for me, it's really important that no matter how you interact with the Playhouse, you're still getting this sort of handmade curatorial approach that we bring to everything. So I've come up with a wide array of matinee opportunities that I know I'm going to bring my 3.5-year-old to, like the original Looney Tunes that you can't stream and that sort of thing. We're working with a local arts and crafts service that's going to do arts and crafts beforehand that are themed after the movies. And we'll have a little Playhouse Junior passport. So every time you go to one of these, you get a special stamp, and then there's some prizes after you see a certain number of movies. So we're trying to create a really exciting way for people at a very young age to come in, but then also for their parents to have a good time as well.
Daniel, when you come visit, you'll play with our arcade that we have in the Calsman Lounge.
Yeah, the Ms. Pac-Man is very popular.
It's super popular, and the kids love it. We encourage them to come in, play on the arcade, have a popcorn, even if they're not going to the film. We should also say that in the Calsman Lounge, we have a bookstore, and we haven't touched on that. That's a really special, it's a wonderful place for parents to come and have read a book for their children before going to a film and engage. And really, it's about engagement. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And so far, I feel like we've gotten really great reception.
And by the way, if anybody's listening who's in the New York area, come visit us. It's a pretty good destination from the city. It's not that far. Southampton beaches were just voted #1 in the country. We don't want to negate that side of things. Go to the beach during the day, see a movie at night. It's not that far from the city. There's a really nice inn next door. So yes, we're serving the East End of Long Island, but we're also serving other people as well.
And it's year round for off season. It's not a bad call.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And that was Maria Ruiz Botsacos and Eric Kohn from the Southampton Playhouse talking about their theater. Earlier, you heard from my colleagues, Rebecca Pahle and Chad Kennerk. And on behalf of myself, Daniel Loria, thank you again for listening to this week's episode of the Box Office Podcast. We'll be back with another episode next Thursday. So please don't forget to rate, subscribe, and keep on listening to what we're doing. You can find all our work over at boxofficepro.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.